What's up? Another daily vlog coming at you live, and in this video I'm going to talk about my thoughts. Went to go see the Van Gogh exhibit not too long ago, and to be honest, I didn't know who he was. I've seen pictures of him or pictures of his artwork and pictures of him. I'm like, okay, Van Gogh art, all right, whatever. And I really didn't know what the whole fuss was about. But as I did further investigation, I learned some things that I didn't know. I learned some quotes that were really, really touching, really good quotes. And I learned about Van Gogh. I learned that this was an artist who was definitely recognized for his work very late, and he was wrestling with some demons. He was wrestling with some torturous thoughts and things, and you know, he's just struggling. He had mental psychosis issues. He killed himself by suicide. But you know, as I first learned, I'm like, okay, well, who is this guy? What, you know? Then this guy lived in the 1800s, so I guess the fact that you're learning about a person so thoroughly who lived so far in the past from today, there's a fascination in that, because now you get to wonder how this person lived, and it's amazing how a lot of things haven't changed, me being an artist. And I think that as I learned about his story, about him making mistakes in relationships and work and stuff like that, I relate to that. And so as I learned more about how he struggled, I was like, I get that. And you know, being a creative person, or another thing that I could relate to was the fact of all the different jobs that he worked, that was that he did. And he did a lot of jobs and things like that, and didn't even start painting until he was like 30. And I can relate to that because I've worked a lot of jobs, and sometimes I shudder at the fact that I didn't go into one job, like how most people I know, they go into one job and they stay at that job, and boom, they're at that job, boom, 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 all the way through, and it's all done, right? So I could relate to that as well. And it really became more interesting to me, because again, I'm like, who is this guy? You know, because, you know, growing up as a kid, I don't know if you really get the context of struggle and pain in life. And I'm not saying that kids don't feel, but I think when you've endured years of figuring out your life, when you endure years of figuring out your life, you know, when you come back to art as an adult like this, it's like, okay, I can appreciate it more, because I appreciate the person's story more than I appreciate art. The pictures, you know, I'm like, all right, I don't know what, you know, but that was his style. But the story of the struggle of trying to figure things out is something I relate to more. And it's just very interesting, because when it comes to his art, like, he couldn't tell you himself, from what I've listened to, it's like he himself couldn't tell you, hey, this is dope. It took other people to recognize that you're dope. And for them to say it. And it is not, and it's just interesting how life works, because until other people, like, you can brag and say you're great all this time, all you want, right? And it'll fall on deaf ears. But when someone else recognizes you and says something, now people see it. It's just a weird phenomenon. I don't know if there's a name for that, but I'm like, wow, I really get that, because oftentimes, you know, I can say I'm great, but I don't really say that out loud. I believe I'm good at what I do, but I don't really go bragging about it. But it seems like it hits different when external reference says something. And that's what happened with his art. You know, he had these external references that finally started kicking in, And when they did, now we want to sell it for millions of dollars. Now we see value in it. But what was interesting though is like when he painted and did all this stuff, his art was like thrown in the trash, stored away, put away, used as tools for other things, used for target practice, all this other stuff. So it's like, this is a very interesting thing. Like, had people knew now how much the art would be worth, you could, the art his art has been sold for like over $80 million. This dude that died in 1890, his art was sold for over $80 million. And it makes me think about, okay, oftentimes great art is recognized late. And it's no fun. That sucks. It sucks that oftentimes a lot of genius, and it makes me think about, okay, well, yeah, I can relate to that. Because I feel like I've been recognized late. Now, I'm not saying I haven't been recognized at all, but to the level I want to be recognized, it's still not there, and I'm still figuring out. And oftentimes, it makes you question, well, geez, is what I'm doing any good? Does it have any value? Because it's not making me the money that I needed to make to do it full time. And we can always put the asterisk yet. But you think about those things, and it makes me think about maybe that's what he was thinking about too. But that's another thing too. You're passionate about something when you don't get much reward from it, but you still do it anyway. That's how you love something. With the art and all that. So he's very passionate about art and things like that. But for the most part, it didn't really, bring him that financial thing, and almost didn't really give him mental peace. And that is a very interesting thing. And I'm the same way with my beats. I'll sell a beat or two here or there, right? Or I'll make a YouTube video here or there, but it doesn't really get recognized. The algorithm doesn't really pick it up much, or the thumbnail isn't right, or the title isn't right. It's the same thing, but then on someone else's field, they create a little bit of content, they get good, and then the audience gravitates to it, and boom, their views are sky high, and they are they're able to be a full-time YouTuber. And then there's tons of nameless people who are out there who have similar aspirations, who are just passionate about something, that have yet to figure out how to make that living from it. And I think it's just fascinating that the similar things happened back then. I think that's where I'm finding the interest from, is seeing that because the human condition hasn't really changed much, situations like this hasn't changed much. He could have started painting today, and it still go down into obscurity. It still go down into the unknown. It still doesn't get recognized. So, I find that very fascinating that this phenomenon happens. But again, just being recognized so late, and for me to come on to the stage over 1,000 years later, 1890. So that's whole 19. That's over 1,000. That's like 100 years. I'm sorry, not 1,000, but 100 years. If he died 1890, so you got the 1900s, and then we in 2021. So that's about 120 years. Wow. You don't really think about it, but that's a lot of time that's gone by. And it's just like, so if you're being recognized late for some things, don't fret. I think everybody has that sort of genius in them, and just know that it's not uncommon to not get the recognition or the work or the things you do. But I can learn from this that, man, I know what I'm passionate about, because I still do it with great passion and interest, even though I don't get something back from it. Like, well, I can't say I don't get anything back from it, but I don't get the kind of things back from it that sustains me. And it's my hope that as I keep going through trying different things, that I get closer to that. So that's my thoughts on that. I'll see y'all in another video.